there's this idea that says, hey, we want men to show up in this way. We want to be more to show up in a more powerful way. But every time we have this conversation about masculinity, we blast masculinity. And then as a result of blasting masculinity, what you do is you actually repel men from wanting to actually want anything to do with it.
Do you think that, I mean, though that early days when you started hanging out with all these people and you started to kind of get to the point where you were like, okay, I'm the only black guy here and I look different than everybody else and everybody's different? Because I had very similar situation when I was young and I first went into business, and I always thought about myself as a short, uneducated, not smart person, little kid, like young little 21-year-old. And that stayed with me that first couple of years in business. And I really had to start figuring this out, because people would ask me questions and I would have to go back and I'd have to study, like over study, to make sure that I felt smart. So I think I mean, in a way, I overdid it. I overworked because I wanted to master my craft so well that I felt like I belonged. I mean, this is just my experience. And so I'm just curious, I mean, throughout this process that you've been with all these guys and, just an incredible group of men, I mean, super, super successful group of men. And so you go there and then, you're a little bit younger than all of them. Did you feel kind of inferior in a way at all? I mean, did that, was that going through your mind at all? Maybe it wasn't, but I mean, did you feel that way at all?
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Because the reason why I asked that is because I'm trying to make the point that we all feel that way, man. Like people join a group or they, start a business or they're around different people, and we all feel those same emotions. I mean, we all feel like we're not good enough. We all, at some point in our life, right? We all feel like, we don't measure up. We're not, in my case, I'm not tall enough. In my case, I'm not smart enough. My IQ is not the highest. And it takes me a long time to read a page of a book, and all this stuff. And I just want to remind everybody that's watching and listening that I don't care if you're 6'8", because this dude is a big dude. All right. Hung out with him before. So, I mean, it's like, we're like that movie Twins, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, and when me and you hang out. Right. And so, and I mean, just a powerful, powerful big guy, man. His biceps are as big as my waist probably. And just an absolute super stud, super nice guy. But even somebody like that walks in a room and he feels at some point in his life, he feels inferior and he feels like he doesn't measure up or he's not good enough. And so we got to all like be okay with that. And as time goes on, what happens, right? You made yourself, you made yourself very valuable to the group. That's one thing you did. You started studying, you started improving yourself and started doing all that stuff to try to, elevate yourself in your own eyes first, because once you felt confident, once you felt great about yourself, then other people started to see you maybe at a different level. Am I making any sense? Does this make sense?
Daniel, this is spot on. So I want to just give some context on this. You said, have I ever felt inferior for a significant period of not only my entry into the group, but in my life? There's this, one of the things that I've come to realize is that especially doing the work that I do now about really helping men to step into like the next level of your leadership. So at the time, I wasn't even in the acceptance. I wasn't even in the full understanding or awareness of what masculinity actually was in terms of who I was as a man. And the reason why masculinity is so important, especially to me, is because of the fact that who we are as men is there's so much confusion. There's a significant amount of confusion. And that confusion, the same emotional confusion that we were talking about earlier, essentially what I did is instead of as a result of being confused, I just withdrew from even the exploration of who I was. So as you're talking about like the idea of like, me being a big guy who is in this environment, part of the reason that I didn't, wasn't in the acceptance of any of the gifts that God has given to me is because I didn't understand who I truly was. So the journey in discovering and understanding, masculinity and true masculine leadership, as we call it, is about, effective, benevolent leadership, like for men, and so that you can understand how to effectively be a leader in the most critical pillars of your life, your faith, your family, your finances, your fitness. And so for me, that's what the journey was. That's what the journey was. It was the journey into those areas. And I needed support to get to those areas because I didn't really understand what it meant. I had heard about it. I was raised by women. The two strongest voices in my home were my mother and my sister, and they were very powerful women, but the thing is that they were still women and they didn't necessarily understand how to empower me as a man to be able to be a leader in this world.
Do you think do you think that today's society is really trying to get rid of that masculinity in men? Because I just see there's so many weak men today. I mean, like more than ever, like really, really, men that do not possess masculinity. And it's almost like, is there kind of a shift happening in our world saying, look, society doesn't want masculine men. We want weak men and we want masculine women. Do you see that?
So this is the fun part of the conversation for me. I mean, the whole thing is fun, but I get a lot of rise from this kind of conversation because I think that, like when people talk about masculinity in society, like there's this idea that the enemy of masculinity is femininity. And those are two opposing, there's two poles, like they just exist on opposite poles. So there's masculine energy, there's feminine energy. The enemy of masculinity is neutrality. It's just neutrality. It's just like, it's like the gray. It's like, it doesn't really matter, right? And so to me, like, that's the thing that gets that. So, but because masculinity is so deeply misunderstood, and people, there's this idea that says, hey, we want men to show up in this way. We want them to be more to show up in a more powerful way. But every time we have this conversation about masculinity, we blast masculinity. And then as a result of blasting masculinity, what you do is you actually repel men from wanting to actually want anything to do with it. It's like here's the example I use. So Daniel, let's just say, for instance, like you were somebody that likes coffee, right? I don't know if you like coffee, but let's just say, for instance, you're somebody that likes coffee. So there you go. You like coffee. So in this case, would you be open to me giving you a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
If I had a cup of coffee, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I give you a cup of coffee. And then as you start to drink from this cup of coffee, I go, you know what? By the way, that coffee is poison. Do you think that you would finish the cup of coffee?
Absolutely not.
Got it. Do you think you would trust whether or not that coffee coming from me, or maybe even the coffee brand, that you would have some possible lack of trust as it relates to it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. Masculine men are protectors and providers. There's nothing poisonous about masculine men, but toxic means poisonous. So if I tell you that masculinity is toxic, if there's poison in masculinity, if I tell you that there's a poison in it, then most men are not going to want to drink from the cup.
If you like this video and you want to watch another one, click right here. If you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.